is familiar with Choose Your Own Adventure books? And you know what those are? A couple of you knows what they are. Okay. So, would anyone like to tell us what a Choose Your Own Adventure book is? Any brave souls? All right, hang on.
But if it's what I'm thinking of, I don't own one, but I've given them to my kids. And it's a local adventure book, and you pick a page and pick an envelope, and if it says you're going to drive 50 miles south and then take this exit, and it'll lead you to some amazing thing that you've never tried before or never heard of before. And you can get them for anywhere. I've got one in Seattle and one in Denver. So, but I don't choose my own adventure.
Now that is actually interestingly different from what I was thinking of. All right, Judy, you might be thinking of what I'm thinking of.
Well, Mark and I read the Create Your Own Adventure books when we were going to Arizona to the reservation. And he would read ahead. So he knew what, he plotted ahead. But he would read a section, and then there were several choices that you could make. And he would plot, oh, Mom, you need to choose this one. And it wasn't always the best choice.
So that is a little more what I had in mind. I'm thinking of a kind of fiction that, unlike most novels we read or unlike most short stories we read, is much more interactive. You as the reader play a role in how you experience the story, because you get to the bottom of, say, page 2. We get to the bottom of page 2, and we have an option before us, right? So bottom of page 2, it says, turn to page 40 if you would like to fight the dragon. Turn to page 67 if you would like to make your new best friend. And I think of what we are doing here in this church as people who strive, however well or less well, to follow Jesus, as people who are part of a congregation that is about to go on its own journey of visioning and planning and making our future. I see us as in a moment of choosing our own adventure. And so we come to a story today in Scripture in which we have some wise travelers. And I invite all of you to see yourselves in the picture, in the story, with the wise travelers, because we're all really wise travelers here in our own ways. We have chosen to follow the star that leads to Jesus in some sense, right? So imagine yourself in this story. You have left whatever you knew behind. Maybe you were a king, maybe you were a sage, not really clear. You have made this trip. You have eventually found the baby Jesus. You have given the baby Jesus some gifts. It's time to go home. And now we get to the Choose Your Own Adventure. Turn to page 40 if you're going to go back to Herod and tell Herod where to find Jesus. Turn to page 67 if you are going to go home by another route and not interact with Herod again, and therefore not tell Herod where to find Jesus. And as we know, these particular wise travelers choose page 67 in their Choose Your Own Adventure books. They leave for their own country by another road. Now, of course, this has a geographical component, right? Maybe this means they're going due east instead of northeast or southeast, hard to tell. But it isn't just a geographical decision they make. It's a much bigger decision. And to help us begin to think about that decision, I'd like to quote that famous theologian and ethicist, James Taylor, who also, I hear, wrote some songs. James Taylor has a song called Home by Another Way. There's a whole bunch of those songs. I'm going to mention two of them in our wisdom sharing today. You're going to hear a third during communion, a much more recent one. But in any case, in James Taylor's, his final verse goes like this: "It pleasures me to be here and to sing this song tonight. They tell me that life is a miracle, and I figure that they're right. But Herod's always out there. He's got our card on file. It's a lead pipe cinch if you give an inch. Old Herod likes to take a mile. It's best to go home by another way." So the wise traveler's decision is actually a rejection of Herod and Herod's cruel, violent agenda. They are, in a sense, choosing between Jesus and Herod. They choose Jesus by not choosing Herod. So their choose your own adventure, their page 67, has some pretty powerful implications. And we're going to think about our own version of choosing page 67 over the course of today. Deborah told us some things about the gospel according to Matthew. One thing she didn't mention is that some biblical scholars think that the nativity story in Matthew, at least in Matthew, maybe also in Luke, but we're not talking about Luke today. The nativity story in Matthew is thought to have been written later than the rest of the gospel according to Matthew, and added on as a kind of prologue. So this is a theological decision that the author or authors of Matthew made. And what they're doing then with this nativity story is basically setting the stage in a prologue or in a kind of parable even about who Jesus is, who Herod is, what the stakes are. And so Matthew, in adding this prologue, is giving us a kind of choice, a choose your own adventure. We can choose the old king, Herod, and the old ways, violence, imperialism, empire, and so on. Or we can choose Jesus, who for Matthew is the new Moses. We'll talk about that some other time. But given that we are here as wise travelers in our own time and place who have chosen to follow the star that leads to Jesus, we have our own decisions to make. We have our own adventure to choose. Now, as we begin our planning process for the future life of the church, there may be some geographical components to our choice. If we decide to sell this building, that may have geographical implications for us. We may end up worshiping somewhere else. I'm not sure. All of this is yet to be determined. But there is this much larger choice we get to make, which is, are we going to be like Herod, like Pilate, like Caesar? Are we going to go the route of power, domination, looking out for number one, sticking to our own agenda and clutching to our own individual agenda? Or are we going to be like Jesus and strive to the best of our ability to discern what God wants for this community and what kind of community this should be? Let me say really quickly, in so many churches, the pastor gets up and talks about God's agenda, and everyone in the room knows that what the pastor is really talking about is the pastor's agenda, dressed up as God's agenda. So as I've said before, and I will say this many times, I do not have an agenda for the direction the church takes. My only agenda is that the process by which we get there have integrity and allow us to build relationships and deepen spiritually. So when we think about going home by another way and the range of things that means, there's something really countercultural about it. It means not going with power. It means striving to do things in unusual ways, perhaps. And our congregation is already a countercultural presence in Colorado Springs. We know this because of our pride flag. We know it because we march in pride. We know it because everyone is welcome here. When we get to communion and you hear how open communion is, you'll be reminded again of how countercultural we are. The fact that I'm standing up here in this role is countercultural. When I moved this past year to my new condo on the west side, I found to my surprise that I lived near 2 evangelical churches. And I won't lie, when I get home every Sunday after church, their parking lots are a lot fuller than our parking lot. So this is pretty good. I mean, I've got some hope today. But their parking lots are quite full. And that's how it is. The culture of Colorado Springs is evangelical religion. So we are a countercultural presence already. And that's something we should be proud of and live into. Now we get to choose whether we want to be countercultural in our approach to our planning and visioning process. With that in mind, let me share 3 quotes. 2 of them specifically related to this theme of going home by another way, and the third, you'll see why it's in there when we get to it. The first is a saying from Burkina Faso. You may have heard this. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We live in a society that's all about going fast, all about going alone. We have the option of going far by going together. Second quote is from the spiritual teacher Ram Dass. You've almost certainly heard this one, who says, "We're all just walking each other home." And I love that. It's so humble. It says, the point of all of this is not money or power, fame, status, who has the most shiny things, who has the most bucket list experiences. I mean, not that all of those are always bad, but that there's something better, something deeper, something that we're really here for, which is to be supporters of one another, shepherds of one another, to walk each other home, perhaps by another way. The third quote comes to us from Mark Zuckerberg, and as you probably already know, this is going to be a little different, right? So here we have Mark Zuckerberg's goal: to move fast and break things. So in the spirit of honesty, we live in a society that loves to move fast and break things. We have an economy that loves to move fast and break things. We have technology that is about moving fast and breaking things. Parts of our culture are about moving fast and breaking things, but we have an alternative. So I'm going to bring the mic around one more time really quickly. What do you think the opposite is of moving fast and breaking things? There are lots of possible answers. There is not one right answer. I don't have an agenda here, sort of. But I'm curious what you think the opposite is of moving fast and breaking things. Anyone? Dana.
Take your time and be gentle.
Take your time and be gentle. That's even better than what I had planned, so thank you. My work here is done. Harima.
Take it slow and build community.
Y'all want to get up here instead of me? Lori.
Someone asked what Harima said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Take it slow and build community. Yeah.
We do a lot with fables in the first semester at school, and my favorite one to teach them is slow and steady wins the race.
All slow and steady wins the race. Those are all awesome. Thank you.
What is the Japanese tradition where something gets broken, they put it together with gold?
Yes. I don't remember the Japanese word for that. Does anyone remember the Japanese word for that? So when there's a Japanese tradition in which when a bowl breaks, gold is used to put it back together so that the cracks show clearly. It's a beautiful tradition. There's a wonderful song called Japanese Bowl by the folk singer-songwriter Peter Mayer about how we are Japanese bowls and how the ways that we have broken and healed make us richer and wiser and kinder. And I wish I could talk about that today, but I can't. But thank you. So what I had actually written down is very close, perhaps unsurprisingly, to what Harima said, which is move slow and build relationships. So pretty much the same thing. And I think this is something Jesus actually did. He built relationships, in teaching, in feeding people, in healing people, in gathering community around him. And in terms of the moving slow part, we should not see the Gospels as contemporary journalistic reporting of what happened only once and was captured exactly as it happened. We should see the Gospels as compilations of things that Jesus probably said over and over and over again. He probably tweaked the parables and the aphorisms. You know, if it landed badly one day, he changed the story a little and tried it again and so on. And he did this for years. You know, according to the Synoptic Gospels, 3 years, who knows, maybe more. So we are in good company if we move slow and build relationships or build community. So our alternative path home, as we begin to think about moving into a season of planning and pondering the future of this congregation and then making that future, is not going to be, I hope, dualistic or oppositional. All of us are going to walk in the door with an agenda, in the sense that everyone has certain values that are more important to them, certain priorities for what the church should do, and those are not all going to be identical. We acknowledge that. So if I think of things a certain way and I think I'm right, and John thinks of them differently, I think John's wrong. We're going to try to do better than that as we move into this process. We, instead of being dualistic or oppositional, are going to try to be collaborative, conversational, and humble. And the collaborative piece is really important. We all need each other to go far. We are all walking each other home. This is a communal, collaborative, collective effort that we are going to engage in. Then there's the conversational piece. I'm reading a book right now called Holy Conversations, written by a couple of church consultants who claim that congregational strategic planning is a spiritual practice. It's not just about a whole bunch of lists or a whole bunch of headbutting agendas, but it's a process in which the task of the leader or leaders, of whom I will be one, the executive council will be one, the visioning team may be one, and our task is going to be to help all of us, whoever we are, to have a personal and meaningful conversation about who we are as a church and what we believe is important to do in a context of religious and or spiritual commitment. That's the conversation piece. We can look forward to a lot of conversations. And on the humility front, Deborah helpfully allowed me to mention the singer-songwriter Peter Mayer a minute ago. He, like James Taylor, has actually written a song about the Epiphany story. His song is called Heavenly Child, and the narrator of his story is a king from the east who makes the trip. And the last verse, after the king has gotten back home, reads as follows: "And still the child haunts my heart, but I've not returned afar to look into his eyes. For in the faces of this very kingdom, every daughter and son, I see the heavenly child." So my question for us is, can we see the heavenly child in each other? Can we see Christ in each other? Because my hunch, my instinct is, if we can see Christ in each other as we carry out this process, the fact that we have different priorities or agendas or values, it's not going to vanish, but it won't lead to harm. It won't lead to destruction. If we can see Christ in each other, again, however you interpret that complex phrase, maybe even that controversial phrase, we will be able to listen to each other well, respect each other, learn from each other, come up with new ideas that we alone did not have, because we all need each other to go far, because we are walking each other home. Finally, this process is going to be invitational. You get to decide how much you participate in the next year's work of planning and visioning, as little or as much as you want. I hope many of you will participate a lot. Every voice will add something. Every perspective will add something. But this can't be about bullying or pressure or coercion or manipulation. It's an invitation, just like what Jesus did was invitational. And since that's who we try to follow here, that's how we're going to try to do this. So before I wrap this up, I will ask the room one more question for sharing. It's really two questions. I do this quite often, I'm sorry. I say it's one, it's really two. As Vista Grande Community Church, UCC, prepares to choose its own adventure this year, what gifts do you have to bring to Jesus? And or what gifts do you have to bring to Vista Grande? Let's start with Zoom. Amy, I see your hand up. Oh, sorry, I do not see your hand up. That's the little hand, right? Anyone on Zoom? Crickets, okay. Anyone in the sanctuary? What gifts do you have to bring? Awesome. Deborah.
I'm old. I've seen things.
That's sort of making me want to run back to the piano and play that dum-da-dum-dum thing again. Sarah.
I've been a part of about 30 churches in my life, and some of them have blown up, and some of them have hurt me, and some of them have nourished me. And I think I have some advice or ideas, let's put it that way, from that experience.
So the first two people who spoke have both basically said they've been around the block and they have some wisdom from being around the block, and we will be grateful for that wisdom. But you do not have to have been around the block to have something to offer this particular question. Cindy.
So what I have to offer is hard to articulate, but it is capsulated in a couple of things. One is, would you rather be right or in relationship? Because you can't do both. But the other thing is to keep in mind that the decisions we make here are temporary, and that our real goal is what happens after this life. And that there is a way to live our lives here that when we actually have a personal encounter with our Creator, we can say, I was imperfect, but I did the best I could.
Two very powerful thoughts. One, that we can be right or we can be in relationship. I think that's true. And two, that we live in such a way that at the time of accounting, we acquit ourselves well. Other gifts on the, okay. Amy Gunning says, oh, thank you, Teresa. Kintsugi, thank you, that's the Japanese term. Amy says, I say what Dana, Harima, Lori, Deborah, and Amanda say. Amy, thank you, I guess, for supporting the rest of our answers. I bet some other people, I hope some other people found them helpful. Anyone else? Oh, okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that I will participate. That's my gift, is I will participate in whatever I can. I will be there.
Participating is great. I hope a lot of us will offer that gift, because if we participate, I promise you we will bring other gifts that we may not even be able to name now. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. Okay, Lori.
feel like it's the Lori show today. I will always bring my sense of humor and a joke to lighten the mood if things get a little tense.
Lori will bring her sense of humor and a joke to lighten the mood if things get tense. There's something you're also likely to bring that you didn't mention, but I bet you'll bring it anyway, which is camp songs. So if we want camp songs, Lori's going to be one of our go-to people for camp songs. All right. What I promise I will bring is as much patience and humility as I can possibly cultivate. I will bring everything I learned from reading a million books on how to try to do this in a good way, which I'm doing in my spare time now. And I promise that I will bring love and respect for every person in the room. Love does not always mean liking someone. It doesn't always mean agreeing with their agenda. But it means treating them well and hearing them out. So in closing, I leave us with a blessing. May we choose the other way, the countercultural path, the humble conversation that will allow us to discern where the Spirit is leading our church in the days ahead. And may we have the courage to follow no matter what, trusting that the Spirit will always bring us home. Amen.